here's the original plans. Rich, this was original, and nothing's changed from those plans. That's exactly how it was built.
Except for the
It's a separate step, yep. How long ago were these, was this?
2015,
Okay, 2016, all right.
15, August 2015.
This is the original stuff right here. And the only difference being is they just changed where the steps were going down. Any questions on this?
Nope.
None for me? If anybody has anything to say from the public about a certificate of compliance? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept these.
Motion for certificate of compliance of 59 Oak Street.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Nancy, you'll be in touch?
I'll deal with it.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you so much. That's back to you.
Yes, those are good.
Oh, let's go, please. All right, next on the agenda is old business, and that would be a continuation of hearing for, now we have a DEP number, SE 084-548, to construct a single-family home with driveway, utilities, and associated grading within the buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetlands at 428 Groveland Street, filed by Abington Investments, LLC.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name, once again, is Attorney Sean Riley at 500 Washington Street, representing the Abington Investments LLC, the owner of the property at 428 Groveland Street, a single-family lot. And as you mentioned, this is just a continuation of the hearing from earlier this month. At the conclusion of the first session, the commission had asked basically for 3 details to be added to the plan, which we have submitted on August 17th. I delivered 9 copies to Nancy. And just to note the additions to the plan, we added and showed the details of the roof drains. The commission wanted to have the water from the roof recharge directly into the groundwater instead of filtering through the lawn. We added the location of 2 conservation wetlands markers, which are shown on the plan, which are the closest edges of the wetland line. And we also were asked to look at the slope of the back lawn. Really, it's the side lawn, depending where your orientation is. So it was graded back from a 4-to-1 slope to a 3-to-1 slope, and we also were able to finagle, so we moved the house about 5 feet further away from the buffer zone. So now the only activity that's in the buffer zone, within the 50-foot buffer zone, is basically part of the silt fence or the wattle fence that'll be in there. So there's actually less disturbance in the 50-foot than the original plan. So an improvement on 3 or 4 different grounds. And we are just here asking for your final review and vote to issue the order of conditions in accordance with the plan that you now have as revised through August 12th. And just for the record, if I could confirm, I know Mr. Smith wasn't physically present at the first hearing, but I believe he signed the certification under Chapter 39, Section 23D for this and for the other continued hearings tonight. Is that right?
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, which allows him to take part in this continued hearing.
Thank you. I think all the questions were asked at last meeting. I think that you brought a set of plans with all the changes that were asked. Does anybody have any questions from the board?
And if you don't mind, I did want to reiterate once again, which we mentioned at the last hearing, this project involves no wetlands fillings, no alteration of wetlands or anything like that. Everything is outside of the wetlands line. Pretty much everything's outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, with the exception of a small portion of the wattle, which is the protection for the wetlands zone.
Right.
I just have one question.
Go ahead.
this is very good. I appreciate this. And the markers that you put in are very well indicated here, and they're supposed to be permanent markers. So I know they said there were flags out there
Yeah.
on the previous one. What are the permanent markers that are here now?
There aren't any now.
Okay,
There
but
will
you're going to be?
Yes, exactly.
And they're going to be like metal posts or something, so there's no encroachment into?
Right, there's 3 or 4 different types of markers, so the engineers will pick whatever looks
Okay.
aesthetically most pleasing, but you're right,
That
they will
was-
be.
Okay.
The flags may eventually blow away, but the markers are
Right.
intended to stay.
Exactly,
Yeah.
okay.
Anything else on the board? I'll open it up to the public. Any public comment on this project? Okay, I'll bring it back to the board. I will entertain a motion to accept as plans submitted. Go ahead, please.
I'll make a motion to accept the plans as received.
Second.
Okay, for SAE 084548 Abington Investments LLC at 428 Groveland Street.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Good luck.
Thank you.
Nancy will have your order conditioned shortly.
Super, and we'll be back in a few months for a certificate of compliance. Thank you.
Good, okay, good.
Sorry, I couldn't find that number.
That's done. Okay, next on the agenda. Yeah, I see that. I read it. I got it, yeah. Lost my agenda. Okay, next on the agenda is DEP number SE 084550. Continued hearing for a notice of intent to construct a single-family home with associated grading and utilities within 100 bordering vegetated wetlands buffer zone at McHugh Circle, map 45, lot 71, filed by James Rourke. We have your DEP number here, and in reading it, the MassDEP has asked, have you received this?
Yeah.
Okay, you have all the questions answered on this, or?
Yeah, John Connell, SciTech Engineering, here with Mr. Rock for the McHugh Circle project. Yeah, I looked at it. Their comment was they wanted to restrict any additional fill on the lots so that it wouldn't exceed that 5,000 square foot threshold that would trigger a water quality certification for the project. Yeah, the order that they reference, 084-0518, was an order that was granted for the subdivision on this that had about 2,000, I think it was 2,075 square feet of fill. That's all that will ever be done out there. We're not going to be filling any of these, any of the lots. This is one lot on the corner, but there's 4 additional lots in the subdivision. This is a plan. It was done at that time. It shows, this is the corner lot here that we're working on now. And then there's 4 additional lots. The wetland fill that was proposed is set for the crossing here, 2,075 square feet. We have no fill you can see on any of the individual lots. So I guess with that, if is a deed restriction required for something like that?
The water quality certification was required, which hasn't been submitted.
No, it says that it would be required or a deed restriction. That a deed restriction or a 401 water quality certification was required.
But MassDEP's records do not indicate that either were submitted.
the deed restriction would be on individual lots, that you wouldn't exceed the 5,000 square feet. The water quality certification is only required for 5,000 square feet of fill or alteration. And we only have, as I said, proposed 2,075. So now they're asking, make sure you don't, I think what they're saying here is don't go over the 5,000, which we will not. What they're trying to prevent is someone from coming in, getting their approval for the 2,075, and then going and filling on the individual lots and exceeding that 5,000 square foot threshold, which again, we have no intention on doing. If that means coming in and saying, and I defer to the owner on this, but a deed restriction to state that no fill on the individual lots, is that what you're asking for, or DEP?
DEP is asking to provide a PDF of the deed restriction or 401 quality certification as required by 314 CMR 9.04. It states real estate subdivision. Any discharged or dredged or fill materials associated with the creation of a real estate subdivision unless there is a valid, unexpired final order of conditions, followed by a certificate of compliance and a recorded deed restriction providing notice to subsequent purchasers limiting the amount of fill for a single or complete project to less than 5,000 square feet cumulatively of bordering and/or isolated vegetated wetlands in land underwater, and the discharge is not to an outstanding resource water. Discharges of dredged or filled material to create the real estate subdivision include but are not limited to discharges resulting from the construction of roads, drainage, sidewalks, sewer systems, buildings, septic systems, wells, and accessory structures. And it says right here, additional information should be provided to the Conservation Commission in the manner of which they require, as well as MassDEP via email to Andrew Poyne at MassGov. So the way I'm reading this, you got to provide a PDF of the deed restriction and the final order of conditions, followed by the certificate of compliance.
Which we would definitely provide at the time. As you said here, a recorded deed restriction providing notice to subsequent purchases limiting the amount of fill for the single and complete project to less than 5,000 square feet cumulatively of bordering and/or isolated vegetated wetland. This is a standard comment. They've been sending this out. This is not unique to this project. But again, it's a little misleading because we don't have to do a water quality certification because we don't exceed that 5,000 square feet. Their concern is that when we come in for these 4 lots, or even this lot together, that we're going to exceed cumulatively that 5,000 square feet. So if the owner says to the subsequent, as they're asking for here, the subsequent purchases, you can't fill, beyond the 5,000, but you can't, we're not asking for any fill. That's an easy thing to draft up. And Attorney, is that something that can be drafted up and included in the deed?
I'm going to have to
I beg your pardon.
Go ahead.
I haven't identified myself. Maybe I'll do that.
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Can I see that?
Yep.
I'm Attorney James Timmons. My law office is in Quincy, and I'm here with Mr. Rourke. I thought perhaps I wouldn't have to speak at all, but as to this condition, I'd be happy to participate in the drafting of the order of conditions. I understand what's being requested, and we can easily include that. We had to put some deed restrictions in following the planning board process. So we have a list of restrictions anyway, and it could be made a condition in the order of conditions that a certificate of compliance won't issue until there's evidence of the specific deeds with the restrictive covenant. So that's not a problem for us. And if you care to, I've also worked with town council before on a number of occasions, and what I'll do is share my work together with this notification from DEP and ask them to send you a brief little memo that satisfies you that and the commission that town council is happy as well. Because it is a little ambiguous, and I think our engineer is correct that this is a general condition that they send out with everything, and it really doesn't apply to this project, but it's been sent nonetheless, so we'll make sure that you include it in the order of conditions and that we comply with it.
I feel I should follow up with MassDEP, Andrew Poyne. It says, just by the way, it says here, not approval of application. They didn't really approve the application. What they did is issue a file number. And it says right here, MassDEP records do not indicate that either were submitted.
I see that, understood.
I really, I'm gonna have to ask you to have a continuance on this only because I need clarification on that, and does the board agree with me? Yes.
And then, what's that? You'll have to come up here. The last sentence to this indicates that additional information provided to the commission sent to DEP, so we can do that as well, a concurrent notification so they get it.
Yeah, it's just that it's,
one of the things Mr. Rourke's saying, and this is kind of what I thought was going on tonight, is we're here primarily on one lot that was the subject of a prior ANRAD issued by this commission in 2016, and it's recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So I'm not, and I noticed that this submittal was not linked to that prior ANRAD or that prior DEP number when I looked at it today. So I do understand what you're talking about here, but I think as the engineer has indicated, part of this is just an informational thing, and the reality is that in the field we're not going to implicate any of these concerns, but we'll ensure that the paperwork reflects that we understood what particular restrictions applied, and we'll include them in the deed restriction so that subsequent owners don't introduce fill to the site as well. I think that's their big concern. We're assuring you that we're going to be less than 50% as far as fill, so we're well below the threshold, and the deed restriction is to make sure that there's no segmentation where subsequent owners come in and then the cumulative effect of the fill exceeds the 5,000. If you look at any of the plans you have topographically, you can tell we're not going to require fill. And we'll make sure that the deed restriction.
I understand all that. It's just that the confusion with this order is it says in capital letters that this issuance of the file number indicates only completion of submittal, not approval. So your application hasn't been approved by the DEP.
DEP never officially approves a submission like that. They only look for completeness of the submission and then issue a number. They wouldn't have issued a number had they not had what they needed to issue a number.
It says right here they don't have it.
Yeah, but I think what they're asking there is make sure to the commission, make sure you condition and make sure you follow up on these issues. Which, again, the attorney said he would include that as part of it, if you were to include that as part of a condition on the order and not grant a COC unless that information has been provided to your satisfaction and to DEP's satisfaction.
And this commission approves the application.
Correct.
Now, we send it up, we send the information up there, and if they care to comment on it, they will. Well, this was the only comment they submitted, was really the deed restriction. that's actually a caution to us, to the applicant. They don't want Mr. Rourke marching around saying, well, it says right here, you know, DEP accepted, they issued a file number, we're all set. The DEP file number has nothing to do with an order of conditions. And I think that's all that all caps language means.
Mhm.
We're looking to get the local approval from you folks.
Any further questions? Any questions?
Could we make it subject to approval with
again?
that language intact?
Yes, that can
As
go,
well
that
as a
can go in the
follow-up.
order of conditions as
Right.
printed here. Under special conditions. Yes, we can put this right in their order of conditions.
Then if they have the DEP number and that's intact,
Right.
do we need to follow up with the
Yep.
one from 2016?
Say again, 26?
The 2016, is that the exact same property that we're speaking of from 2016 that you said there was a DEP number issue for?
All right,
The DEP file number was for the
it's for this one.
revised, or the amended subdivision, that 5 lot.
So is there any reason why we're not working off that number and we've been issued a new number?
This is, every individual lot gets a new number.
Okay.
Every filing's different. and
So
they-
we are talking about a different lot?
Well, it's part of the subdivision, you can see it here. But when you come in, any work done, this was for the roadway. Now we're coming in for the individual house, and we're within 100 feet of the BVW. Hence, we have to come in, because you didn't approve the house locations, et cetera, on this. You approved the roadway, the drainage, the alteration, replication. This house could change. We could have had a different footprint for the house. It could have moved a little bit. It didn't, but it could have, and that would have, now you're approving this lot individually under a new border, a new file number and a new border.
And the 2015 filing was, as our engineer said, primarily because of the road construction, but it implicated this lot. So the address that was used was 10 McHugh Circle, which is the address of this lot. And I can give you the number. It's 84-495. It was 084-0495, filed in August of 2015. And at that time, it was an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. It was just the Concom identifying where the resource areas were, so when the road went in, there were proper protections in place. Well, now we're stepping off the road onto the particular lot, and there's buffer implications, buffer zone implications.
So is the original order of conditions on this received a certificate of compliance? No.
This work hasn't been done.
No, I'm talking about the original project. The original
Do you
McHugh
mean from
Circle.
the 2015?
Yes.
There's no, this was just a notice of resource area delineation. It wasn't a request for an order of conditions. There was nothing to comply with. The Concom at the time just accepted a plan that was submitted that outlined where the wetland areas were and where the buffer areas were for the particular project. So there was no certificate of compliance at that time. There is none with an ANRAD.
Okay,
That's more of an informational step.
yeah. Any other questions from the board? I'll open it up to the public. Anybody from the public have anything to say on this matter? On this? Ooh, I guess I already know what it was here for. We'll bring it back to the board. And with this being included in the special conditions of the order of conditions, I would take a motion to approve this notice of intent.
Motion to approve SE 84550, McHugh Circle,
Okay,
with the
second.
second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. This will be in, and your order of conditions will be there, and again, if you look them over and make sure that everything is going to be done
Understood.
properly. Okay,
Yeah, understood, and we'll address that.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, good night.
How you doing? See you outside.
Thank you, okay. Okay, next on the agenda would be a continuation of SE 084549, continuing hearing notice of intent to construct a single-family dwelling, including driveway, grading, landscaping, and utilities within the 100-foot buffer at 75 Dale Street by Rich Montgomery.
Good evening, Commission members. I'm Paul Dacus with Grady Consulting on behalf of the applicant. I have some updated plans as we received comments at the previous hearing.
Thanks. You want to share?
As you said, this is a continuation for a previous hearing for a notice of intent for construction of a single-family dwelling with attached barn, proposed septic system, gravel driveway, gravel parking, and we addressed some of the comments that we had received previously, which I'll go over in a minute. These new plans also, we had received input from town council in regards to the planning board approving new lot lines with the associated parcels, and they recommended that we show how we can provide driveway and access to the existing dwelling on the proposed lot 1, which is in the lower left side of the street. So we've added that to the plans, and I'll go over that as well. The first page kind of just gives an overview of the proposed barn, the proposed septic system towards the right side of the page, a proposed single-family dwelling, which was relocated since the last hearing, a gravel driveway connecting to the existing driveway, and a new gravel driveway for the existing dwelling, and the pedestrian crossing. On sheet 2, we go into a little bit more detail. For the barn, the roof drain for the barn was relocated. This wasn't a comment, this is something we caught. It was incorrectly shown on the plan going out to Open Road, which was not on the property, so we relocated to be contained within the site. The proposed dwelling was previously approximately 42 feet from the bordering vegetation wetlands. We looked at, there was a request to have that moved to 100 feet away. We looked at that option, and because of the architectural design of the house having a full walkout basement combined with the slope of the grade as we got to 100 feet, that would have actually required modification to a second buffer zone towards the top of the page so that we could grade it out. So 100 feet did not seem feasible as we are now impacting 2 buffer zones. So but we did find an optimal zone of approximately 60 feet from the board BBW as kind of like a medium from away from the 42, but we couldn't meet the 100. No alteration is proposed to the BBW. I know it is a potential vernal pool. We're not altering the storage capacity of that wetland. The driveway, to meet the existing driveway, the existing gravel driveway is remaining the same. No changes happened there. If we go to page 3, so sheet 3 is a new sheet. It requested that we have a blow-up of the front portion of the lot, so we've added that sheet to the plan set as well. This also provided us with an opportunity to develop the proposed pedestrian crossing dwelling to be shown on the plan, so we looked at the existing flood zone on the FEMA map, and the FEMA map indicated that a portion of the lot was in Zone 8E. It had staggering elevations. To the left side of the page, the Zone 8E elevation was 155. To the right side of the page, a little bit further away from the proposed lots, the AE zone elevation was 157, so we kind of interpolated and came up with an AE elevation of approximately 156. So the proposed driveway would come in from Dale Street. It'd be relatively short, have enough parking for 4 or 5 vehicles. There would be shown on the plan as a proposed pedestrian path. There's no intent to put any material down for this pedestrian path. It is just meant to be a route. The pedestrian route is the intent of the route is just to show one on the plan, but the actual route in the field would be to avoid all the mature trees as much as possible, not take down any of the mature trees as best as possible, which we don't feel is needed. If you see the photo on the right side, you can kind of see there's sufficient space for an individual to walk around trees. So no mature trees would need to be taken down in defining a proposed path. The crossing itself, we looked at a pedestrian bridge crossing. On the bottom side of the page, the abutments and the steps leading up to the bridge would be outside of the floodplain elevation. The structure itself would remain above that elevation 156. It'd be like 156.2 to the bottom of the structure. On the top side of the intermittent stream there, the crossing would touch down, and the proposed crossing would touch down in the flood zone elevation 156. To mitigate that, we're proposing some mitigation adjacent to where the work is being done. The estimated size of alteration was approximately 83 square feet to put the steps and a portion of the path in before the path would be located outside the flood zone. This was approximately 21.5 cubic feet of storage. For a proposed replacement, we're proposing 100 square feet with a cubic feet replacement of storage of 30 feet, so an increase in flood storage. After the path meets the elevation 156 line, it would be similar to the pedestrian path on the south side of the intermittent stream, where it'd just be a natural walkway up towards the house. So those are the proposed changes and the requested changes that we made to the plan. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
This is on behalf of a member that could not be here tonight. First of all, the first question would be, has erosion control been set up since the last meeting?
It is currently staked, and we are prepared to have them come in either the end of this week or the beginning of next week.
I'm sorry, could you get up to the mic? I can hear you, but the people at home.
My name is Richard Montgomery, 37 Orchard Lane. Currently, we are on the docket for having the silt fence installed by the end of this week or the middle of next week, depending on weather conditions.
Okay.
It is all currently staked.
And part of, if this is accepted, part of your order of conditions, you'll notify the board so it can be inspected? Okay. Second question he had, he'd like to know what pipe material is the existing culvert crossing the existing driveway? What pipe material is the existing culvert crossing the existing driveway? Is the current pipe size and material adequate based on the trucks that will be coming on and off the property during construction?
I'd have to, I'm not sure what material is out there, if it's aluminum or not. I do know there's crushed stone on top of it. We weren't proposing any changes to the driveway itself, so I'm not as familiar with I know there's a history with that culvert being revised, going from one culvert to 2 culverts with crushed stone. So it was upgraded. I'm not sure in terms of the loading capabilities of it.
I'll ask a question. Have you, has there been, you've had plenty of trucks in there up till now? I had no problem. Okay. And lastly, and this is from Paul Bunker. With everything that happened at last night's meeting, should we set up an official site visit to see if in fact any wetland violations have occurred? I will defer to the rest of the board's experience on the last question. Should we set up an official visit to see if in fact any wetland violations have occurred? We could, it's up to the board on the convenience of what your time schedule is. Mr. Montgomery, would you oppose?
We've certainly had enough of your members out on the property. I definitely couldn't do weekends, and obviously I work until 3:30 every day as a high school teacher, so I couldn't do it until probably, I would say, 4 o'clock during the week on either, it would be either a Tuesday or a Thursday, from 4 to 5, I guess would be.
Okay, that would put some restraints on it, but a Tuesday or a Thursday after 4? Board members, I know it's difficult.
I think given this current situation and being that we don't have the board members that were there on that site visit, I think it would be prudent that we have
Okay.
the current board view the property.
Okay. Probably like to get it done as soon as possible. Is anybody available? I know it's gonna be hot this Thursday.
Let's do it this Thursday.
Works for me.
Russ?
Yep.
Thursday at 4 o'clock, is that okay, or is that gonna be difficult?
Definitely not this week.
Okay.
This week and next week, we're in the process of starting school back up, and I have some
Oh.
mandated training that I have to go to
Okay.
for the new mandates of COVID. So
Who do you have available for?
I'm double checking.
With the, Labor Day is the 6th, I don't know what your schedule is, the 7th, Rich? What,
I could do the 7th, like say 4:30.
Can we do the 9th?
we can go for the 9th,
Yeah.
available?
Do the 9th, I'll make accommodations.
About 4 o'clock,
Yes, sir.
okay? September 9th. Okay. Those are the questions that we have answered on part of Paul Bunker. Anybody else have any questions from the board? I would like to reiterate that I know there's other things that are going to be happening in the future. The planning board has asked us to accept these plans for the house. The garage and the septic system are outside the 100-foot buffer. The reason they're here before us, they've already been to the planning board. The planning board asked to come to us that if we would approve where the house is, just according to conservation. There's gonna be future work coming up, we're not gonna discuss that, that's not part of the agenda tonight. So I just wanted to make sure that that is clear. I really don't have any other questions, there was enough questions asked last time, and it's all in our minutes. Russ, any questions? No? I'm gonna now open this up to the public. Is anybody from the public have anything to say? Mr. Alwick?
Thank you. Doug Ulwick, 99 Dale Street in Abington. I'm a direct abutter to this project. First of all, thank you for scheduling a site visit. I really appreciate it. Hopefully will address a lot of the concerns I've already raised. Having heard concerns from the planning board that have begun to be addressed on these plans, part of the issue is access to the existing house without using a shared driveway. And I'm hearing there's a pedestrian walkway here. I'm not sure how that helps when you need to get a fire truck there. It's across the river. I'm not sure how that helps when you need to pump out the septic system. It's across the river. Somehow I have a pedestrian bridge to get to the back of my property, but I can't get a vehicle out there. And there are times you need to get a vehicle out there. So the notion of a pedestrian bridge being adequate to say, okay, we'll have the driveway out front and then a pedestrian bridge across the river is impractical at best and perhaps dangerous and from a public safety point of view. So that is of great concern to me as perhaps not meeting the intent of having a something separate from a shared driveway. That's one concern I'd like to raise. The other one I'd like to raise is I'm wondering where things stand with the stormwater bylaw. More than an acre of land has been cleared here, which should have, before it happened, triggered Abington's stormwater bylaw. And applications should have been made, and there's a 5-member authority that includes the chair of the Conservation Commission.
Just so that you know,
Please.
that has all been taken over by the planning board completely. That board, in existence as it was, had a meeting, and we voted, myself, John Stone, whoever else was there, to all stormwater management will be done by the planning board because they have an engineer and they will look at it. So as far as the original members, they no longer exist. The new members of the stormwater management team are the planning board. Just to be clarified on that.
But this will affect water runoff from the site.
Yeah, so any stormwater management issues that you have, you'll take them up with the planning board.
Are we now seeing on the plans a detention basin of any sort?
Again, that's stormwater management, and again, that has been, because you can talk to an actual engineer from the town, and the applicant's engineer, that would be the right process to go on that. But there is a process.
Okay.
Okay?
The work has been done in terms of taking down the trees. I'm downstream from this. I want to go on record, I'm very, very concerned about my basement flooding. It never has, it's come close, but all of a sudden, all the detention held by the trees and by vegetation or whatever is gone. And there's been no hearing, there's been no design, there's been no nothing. And unless something's resolved by this winter, when we get the flooding, I could end up underwater. And I'm really, really concerned about this process. And I wanted to share that and go on record with that because the work was done without dealing with the stormwater. So that's an ongoing concern.
My only question is if you have water rising, could it be something farther downstream that could be backing it up for any reason? I don't know the answer. I'm just asking you the question.
That hasn't been the case.
Okay.
It has happened in the past that we've come close to it when the water flows over the top of the driveway. And I presented photographs to you folks at the previous hearing that even after the double culvert had been put in, there was still water flowing over the driveway. January 18th, 2018, I think, is when that photograph was taken. And that's when I'm in trouble. So that's stuff coming from the property in question.
He didn't own the property in 2018, but I also asked you at the last meeting because of we had record amount of rain in July. And there was no flooding at that time.
It's not when it floods. It floods in January, February, March. That's the history of it. And things have changed.
Yeah.
Things have changed without permits. And I'm very concerned about that and want to go on record with that.
That's a question. That's why we made the appointment to go over there and walk it.
Please.
So,
Okay.
Yep.
That's it for my questions.
Very good.
Thank you.
We will, especially the walk, we'll try to answer some of the questions on that and see if we can give any kind of opinion on even if there's a way to make sure that he can contain his water, and that would be the planning board with the stormwater management. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Hi, Kathy Creighton, 53 Vineyard Road. I have a couple of comments. The first is on the stormwater. Per conservation regs, you're supposed to address stormwater, although it is a single-family house. Because it has the tree farm and the barn, it doesn't qualify for the exclusion. And the stormwater should be included on the plans you have, and you should have drainage calcs. Whether they're reviewed by the planning board, which would be very helpful, that just needs to happen. And that is not on the plans. This is a pretty big area. The other thing is, because it's over an acre of destruction, at this point, I do believe of construction, essentially, you may qualify to need to get an NPDES permit from the state. Second thing is that the wetlands delineation was done about 3 years ago in the winter. And I'm really glad you guys are going out to look at it, but you really should consider whether that is a very valid evaluation or not, because it was done in the middle of the winter. And it was 3 years ago. And that's usually the time that we require people to reflag. The last thing I had was that if you go to Lot 5 on Dale Street, Russ and Mike have both participated in that hearing. DEP determined that the river was perennial at that spot. You have decided that it is intermittent on these two lots. I'm not arguing about it, but the two lots in between, you know, there's Dale Street, there's two lots, and then there's 75 Dale. Are those two lots, is the river perennial, or is it intermittent? Probably needs to be figured out, because then the 100-year Riverfront Protection District applies. And that's it, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, to answer number 3, it was determinative meeting in April, I believe, that the stream was intermittent on that property. Okay.
Mike, I believe at the last meeting, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but they said that they determined it for 75 Dale Street. They did not determine it for the rest of the river.
Well, that was also part of the confusion, because Sean Riley was representing the previous owners, Mr. Ulwick was here, and so forth. There was really no specific area that was said. It was determined that that stream was intermittent, and unless I'm wrong,
I'm not
Doug, if you'd like-
disagreeing about 75 Dale Street. I'm just talking about the upstream properties from it. And somebody should take a look at it. Maybe when you're out on your sidewalk, you can take a look.
see, it's of my opinion, I can be wrong, that a stream, no matter what, if it's a stream and it's determined it's intermittent, as long as the name of the stream is the stream, it's intermittent. But that's just...
5 Dale Street was determined by DEP to be perennial. So which one wins?
Yeah, again, it was determined, 75 Dale was in question, and I thought that all this property was 75 Dale, so the intermittent stream will have to be maybe brought up again with the, when they go in front of the planning board with the water. And there was a second question.
My second question was the delineation.
What?
The delineation, you said.
Oh, yeah, we'll look at that. Is there anything else from anybody? Yes, sir.
How you doing? I'm Christopher O'Neill. I live at 70 Diane Circle in Abington, and if it would please the board, I'd just like to speak to my general support of this project and approval of the single-family home. I know that me personally, being an Abington resident for 20 years, when I see 22 acres, are we talking about? 22 acres get bought, I immediately worry about big development, right? I think we're using conservation here as a way to handicap somebody from building a single-family home, which we can all agree and I think most people are here because they really truly believe in conservation and protecting the wetlands, and I totally agree with you. what is better than a single-family home on 21 acres as far as protecting wetlands? There is alternates. People have a right to develop their land when they spend money. So that money, he can sell that property, and it can be bought up by one of these big developers that can come in here and they have the money to pay the DEP fees and everything they need to pay to get what they want to do. So you're worried about water. If you have 100 condos up there with parking, you're gonna have a lot of water. If I could, not that I'm drunk, if I could, I'd like you guys talking. I had a similar situation that ironically, Mr. Montgomery spoke against when I bought 9 acres on Orchard Lane. I came to this board, I came to the zoning board to ask for a shared driveway. I had to cross wetlands. Shared driveway would be the skinniest, least impactful way to go about it. Would you agree? Okay, well, that was the least impactful. That was denied. I was sent to then have to put a road in, which was double the impact, which then pushed us to the point that we had to go to the Army Corps of Engineers. And did you know that you can pay them? I could have paid $100,000 to the Army Corps of Engineers and done no replication yet. It's in lieu of. You can do that. So I could do no replication, do double the impact across the wetlands, and then I'd be good to go. The money made it prohibitive. So now, I'm just a single man with a local family. I want to put 2 houses up there with a shared driveway. Now I'm left with $200,000 worth of debt and a valuable piece of land that I'm going to seek to sell to a developer. Because that's my only option after I got dragged through the mud with unreasonable things such as safety, when safety has nothing to do with conservation. We're not really worried about fire trucks saving the Montgomery family. So I would tell you to look at the long game here. If you want to protect, my project's done. I'm done with that. But what it did was, it put more impact on Orchard Lane, and for no reason. I want to put 2 houses up there for me and my brother, 20-year residents of Braintree with kids in the schools. I volunteer for soccer, and I can tell you right now, the Montgomery family, and again, he gave me a hard time. He was one of the people that was a problem when I was doing this. But I can tell you, it's a good family. He's a good man. He's trying to put a single-family home on a 21-acre lot. You're not going to get a better result to that. And I'll tell you, you can fight it all you want. You can beat him into submission. But he's going to sell it to a big developer if you beat him. And I'm just telling you, if you really care about the conservation and you really care about this town and protecting wetlands, you need to take your feelings aside and really look at the long game here. That's all. That's why I am in full support of this project. I can't think of a better thing than to put a single-family house with a tree farm on 21 acres of land in my town.
Thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience? Okay, we're gonna bring it back to the board. Now, the notice of intent is for the driveway and the house. Everything else is outside the 100-foot buffer. The existing driveway is already there as existing. Anything in the future will be handled by the planning board. They will accept any other plans and so forth and bring it back to us if there's gonna be any more conservation issues. So what we have to do is determine if we will accept these plans as submitted for the conservation tonight for 75 Dale Street. And we'll have a vote of yes or no. 2 out of 3 will determine how the vote goes. Well, that's what I was gonna put in the order of condition. I was gonna ask for a vote tonight with determining after we make the sidewalk. But I would like to take a vote so that they can continue with the planning board, but also put in here that if we determine that there's conservation violations, that we will bring it back here. That's, what I don't want to do is hold them up for another 3-4 weeks, whatever it's going to be, until that. So, I just, in other words, we'll take the walk, and then, I guess we'd have to bring it back for a vote. I guess that's, I'm not sure that we can take the vote and let them go to planning and have planning talk about it, but still, what are the feelings of the board? I'm having difficulty with this because he's been held up enough as it is.
I'm sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
don't mean to interrupt, Mr. Chairman, but I'm not a voting member. My opinion would be to look at the site, bring it back, make the determination. I understand some of the concerns from watching the prior meeting. My only concern, just as a newbie sitting here listening, as he was speaking, I jotted down, my concerns with driveway was the downstream flooding, the upstream, downstream, where does the water go, habitat wetlands, bank erosion, stream stability, what's the impact upland and downland? I mean,
Okay.
this seems to be in the middle of this
Okay.
river that's not really a river. I don't know. That's just my opinion. I'm nobody.
Russ?
I don't know how we, if we can, without the walk, we put the stipulation and nothing else is done.
Just because this has been such a high-profile project, I think what we're gonna have to do is continue it until we take the walk. So, that it's, I know what I would like to let you go to planning, but we really can't. We have to that's why they asked you to come here first.
Yeah.
So, it'll be the 9th, and we'll be there, and then our next meeting will be the 14th, the following Tuesday. We can bring it back in here for a vote and let you know what we find. And I think that's the best way to handle this. Yes, ma'am?
Yes, a question. Do I go up there?
Yes.
Christine Hickey, 68 Barnyard Lane. I was wondering if it'd be possible if I take the walk with you.
This is just Conservation Commission only.
I can't.
Unless Mr., no, okay.
No? You didn't want me to come up?
I'm done with people walking the property. It's got ridiculous. My driveway's constantly being blocked.
You said, I'm sorry. But since I invite you, I really, instead of going through the backyard, through the woods, I would really like to take a look at the property. I absolutely do know the property because I was friends with the Winowitzes for many years. And the other question I'd like to ask you, sir, you bought 22 acres, is that correct? 21 plus. Does that all include Abington, or is that part of Weymouth?
It's all
All Abington? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is John Keegan. My daughter lives at 6 Beaver Lane, which shows a right-of-way coming into this property through Conservation Commission property and down through Oakland Street. And these particular plans are now calling for Dale Street. Has the land been subdivided?
That's the planning board issue.
I'm confused on that they're going to try to get access to the land back there through an existing driveway.
All we're talking about in the agenda tonight is this, the set of plans that are here. I don't know what you're talking about as far as Beaver and other access and so forth. There's nothing on these plans to acknowledge that, so that has nothing to do with what's on our agenda.
Okay.
If
So
you
I
have-
guess at this point here, if you're going to continue the hearing,
If
I'd like to get a copy of the plans and the copy of the notice of intent that was filed. Would that be possible?
It's public, yeah, I guess. Yeah, the set of plans, I think you'll have to ask the engineer for and so forth. So, but if you're talking to us about anything that is other than what's on the agenda, we can't discuss it, especially if it has something to do with right-of-ways and so forth. That's planning board.
So,
Oh, go
you
ahead.
would, you would sit here and consider that the access to where they want to build the house is through a common driveway that exists right now.
Yes, that's.
However, the lot that is behind that, the address is Oakland Street. So, what's happened to Oakland Street?
Again, what we're discussing is if the conservation is gonna allow the proposed dwelling to go up within 60 feet of the wetlands. We're gonna take a walk on the property to see if there's been any other violations, and the planning board has asked us to do that first, so then they can start to determine, from what I understand, I was not at the planning board's meeting, from what I understand, they are then gonna determine the access and the driveways and so forth.
What is the address of the house?
75 Dale Street.
So just I'll clarify, the ultimate address will be determined by either the planning board or assessors, but what's shown on the plan are proposed parcels, which if the A&R plan was approved by the planning board, this is what it would look like. So this is what we based the design off of. And this is what they wanted to, this is what we gotta get approved. They wanted, because of the proposed lot one shown on the plan, we needed to show the access. And that's what we're here with conservation, is getting all that stuff. So the lot lines shown are proposed. They don't exist there. What does exist is the individual lots, which the applicant owns. The applicant owns all of the applicant does own all of the land within the two property line boundaries. So they're both 9, 10 parcels. He owns both sides of Oakland Road, and when he owns both sides of Oakland Road, he then owns the fee of Oakland Road, he then takes Oakland Road.
However, Oakland Road extends further, and in order to say that he owns both sides and stop access to the people in the rear is wrong. You have to go through a process to abandon the street.
That's the plan, and that would be the plan. So that's just to bring up the speed of what's shown there, that's why. Just to show you what's going on, to just bring up the speed of what's going on.
I'd just like a copy of the plans and a copy of the notice of intent. Thank you.
You'll handle that with him? Okay. As of right now, I think what we're going to do is close the meeting out for a continuation until September 14th. September 14th. Just a motion on that, please?
So make a motion. Second.
Motion continue.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yep. Okay, that ends that. Next on the agenda.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Good night now. Building permits, no issues. No site visits from the members that are here. And if we could take, do the minutes from,
Can't do minutes. They only have 2 of us here for the minutes. There's only 2 of us here for the minutes, so we can't do the minutes.
Mike,
okay?
should we notify any additional abutters to jail if we're gonna go upstream or
The
downstream?
walk is just for us, okay? The butters, no, this is, if he just
No, I
said-
meant abutters if we're gonna view their property.
We'll be on his property.
Okay,
Yeah, it's just his property.
okay.
Okay, that's fine. As far as the minutes go, it's just Russ and I. I will make the motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
All, he and I in favor, that's 100%. Now we have correspondence. Oh, we can't leave, we have to do a order of conditions
For the first
for 2. And I have...
Okay. Okay. And the butter guy can be over here, she's got him.
Huh?
Karen's got the guy, and he will put, go upstairs with him, talk to him about it.
Okay, we have the zoning board of appeals agenda that they sent us, and this is going to be for September 9th, if you'd like to read it. And it's going to be a continuation and so forth. This is just general correspondence from another board. If you want to read that. We have a set of plans that that they would like to have reviewed because they have a public meeting to be scheduled September 7th. This must be for the planning board, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you'd like to look these over. They most likely, unless they're outside the 100-foot buffer, will be coming in front of us anyways. But just to familiarize yourself with it a little bit, here it is. Now, I'm the only one that has to say that, right?
Yep.
Is that on the 380 Brockton Ave?
No.
No, it's 1437 Wilson.
I just want to find that DEP number for,
Which one?
Q circle.
The Q circle is,
No, not the number, I need the,
Oh, the sheet?
yeah, I know it is. Okay. I don't know what I do with it.
which one do you need?
Good, I don't think I had those with me either.
There's so much
The Q
paper.
circle, you got the plans?
I got it right here.
For conservation, but we're killing trees.
No, I got, I want to make sure that this is in the order of conditions.
I hope not, but yes.
Okay. Pass those down.
Thank you.
What we do now, we voted to accept the plans, and just for your information, what we do now is we put in an order of conditions, and the standard order of conditions have this on. Did you get a copy?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, okay. So what we do now is we go through and determine which paragraph and sub that we're going to have as orders. So I have this is for 428 Groveland Street, SE 084548 for Abington Investments. And as we go down, I have A1, and that's 20 feet. And then it's going to be A2 through A6. Then we'll go B1, B2, B3, B4, B7. Now, flood control, I don't have any of C because there's no flood control needed. There's no wetlands replication, so there'll be no, I'm sorry, surface water, groundwater quality. There's no reason for that because it's not construction of a road. Wetlands replication, there is none, so there's no E. Wildlife habitat protection, there's no F. On-site conditions, G1, G2, G3, G4, G5 will be at 20 feet, G6, G7. Then we'll go administrative conditions. H1 will be as plans submitted. Oh, I'm sorry. So there's no H.
No, so
Oh.
it's just not one, I think we go to two.
Okay. Okay, I have H2, H4, H5, H6, H8. Work schedule sequence of events will be I1. And then I2, A, B, C, D, E, and F. The special conditions. So we don't have to worry about the slope work, existing area, continuous, yeah. Will contain the comments written by, oh, I'm sorry, this is the wrong project. Nope, there were no special conditions because this is for Abington Investments. Okay. Now, from what I can tell, because this is a single-family home, it's pretty much identical to the first one. I'll go through it, if anybody has any questions or would like to make any comments. A1, 20 feet, A2 through A6, B1, B2, B3, B4, B7, and again, no C, no D, no E, no F. G1, G2, G3, G4, G5, 20 feet, G6, G7, onto H2, H4, H5, H6, H8. Same thing with the I's, it'll be I1, and then I2, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Under special conditions, I will submit to Nancy to put in the comments from the DEP, and I think you've already discussed with the lawyer that he will talk to you about that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that's all we have for tonight.
Okay.
Anything else? Oh, we have to have signatures, I'm sorry.
Sign
Yep.
it.
1, 2, 3. Order of conditions and a certificate of compliance.
Yeah, and this is actually, that is Dorothy, and it's an amended order because he changed the plans.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And it'd just be better if we amended it so that it reflected the right date on the plans.
Mhm.
Yep, that's fine. While we're signing these, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're all set?